we can get going here, and then other guys will jump in. I know we're starting a minute early, but they should get here early. We wouldn't want our players to get here late. So, so up tonight, we got two speakers. First off, we got Coach Brad Dixon from Central High School in Camp Point, Illinois, which is the western side of the state. He's the head football coach, the boys track coach, strength and conditioning coordinator, and his full-time job is actually a PE teacher. So he wears a lot of hats at the school. So we'll let you get going, Coach Dixon. Have at it.
All righty, I'm gonna.
Sure. I gotta give you
permission.
Actually, gotta make you host so you can do that.
Okay.
And if you're gonna show any video, you can optimize video too.
Yep, I will here if I get to what I want. Okay. Share. Oh, optimize video again. I got to remember how to do that. More. Optimize for video clip. Got it.
There you go.
Does everyone see that?
Yep, you're all good.
Okay.
YouTube page.
Yep. Is everyone good there?
There you go.
Because I can't see you guys anymore. All right. So like he talked about, I wear a lot of hats. I also taught history for like 12 years before I went back and got my PE. So I taught history and PE for a period of time. But I've really got into passion for athletic performance. So what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to try to go fast because I got quite a few slides, and I'm just going to try to give you as much as I can. Don't hesitate to ask questions at the end. I've got every different type of athlete, from volleyball to golf to basketball to football, all mixed in all my classes. So I was able to really push for what we call athletic enhancement or athletic PE. So 4 periods out of the day. In a normal year, now we're on the block schedule because of COVID, but normally I have 4 periods throughout the day, and a little over 100 of our athletes, roughly 80 to 90% of all of our athletes take that. And so we can train consistently year round. So we're working on building athletic performance for all athletes, not just football focused, not just basketball, things like that. So these are just some of the pictures that I put up there of just various teams over the last few years. I'm not going to get in much of this. Like I said, I've coached a little bit of everything, and I've taught a little bit of everything. I played 1 year. I don't have a fancy CSCS or even a USA weightlifting or any of that stuff. So, the things that I do now are because people have influenced me in doing it, or over, 18 years of working in strength and conditioning, I've found things that I like and things that I don't like. My first confession is that I do some powerlifting. So I've always been a number chaser. Not always, but for the longest time coaching, I've chased 600-pound deadlift, 405-pound squat, things like that. Got the strength record board. So a lot of things that I talk about today are not going to be really weight room focused, but that's who I am. So it's taken a lot for me to try to transition out of always thinking weight room is the end all be all for everything, because that's kind of what's in my blood. But so don't think that I've never been in a weight room before. And then confession 2 is, and I got this, if you don't know Coach Holler, he's kind of one of my mentors. He and I hooked up probably 3 or 4 years ago. I reached out to, I first got to know him through track, and then I reached out to him on some football stuff. And we've become good friends and been able to speak alongside each other several times over the last several years. But he said something at a clinic that I was at in Chicago 2 winters ago. And he said, most coaches don't want to learn how to cook. They just want the damn recipe. And that's how I always was. And, I wanted someone to tell me, this is exactly how you should do something. I don't really have recipes. Hopefully I've just got some things that you can take and put into your system, because everyone's in a different, some people are training a few athletes in the morning. Some people have maybe PE. Some of you are trying to fit it into practice. I don't know all your situations, but I'm trying to give you some big rocks, some pillar things that I think are important. Because I think that as a coach, as a strength professional, whatever your title is, you got to be willing to accept it, teach it, and believe in it. And so just because I say that's what we do, you may not believe that, and that's not going to be a part of your program because that's not what you think, and that's perfectly fine. And so I always say, take what you like, throw out what you don't like, ask questions if there's things you want me to answer on maybe why we do certain things as I go through here. So some of my influences, if you want to take a picture of this, any of these guys are phenomenal resources of information. Barry Ross is dead, but he wrote a book called Underground Secrets of Faster Running. It's a pretty solid book. Tony Holler mentioned Chris Corfist. So that's Chris there. They run the track football consortium throughout the country. Dan Fichter has his own gym, teaches and coaches in New York. Huge on neuro training. Cal Dietz, strength coach, Minnesota hockey, part of the RPR crew. Brian Kula down here trains Christian McCaffrey. Rabasisi is a track coach here in Illinois. Kurt Hester's here. He's the strength coach, Louisiana Tech, wrote Rants of a Strength Conditioning Madman. Zach Dakant, I think is how you pronounce it, from TCU Baseball. He's phenomenal. Follow on Twitter. Mike Boyle, Ken Clark, Charlie Francis. So just some of the things that I've pulled pieces from in doing this. So I want to give some shout outs to them. A few of these ideas are of my own, just thinking them through. It's mainly, okay, I like that, I'm going to add that and put that together. So the question I get pretty consistently is weight room versus sprint training. You a lot of times you end up seeing people that are all in on the weight room, do a little bit of running, do some conditioning, and then you got people that are all in on sprint work and don't do much in the weight room. And so me as a football coach, as a track coach, and training athletes of all different sports, I heard Chris Corfus one time say, quit thinking of those two as separate entities. Think of them all as exercise. A 40-yard dash is an exercise, or a 10-yard fly, the same that squats an exercise, cleans an exercise, deadlift, whatever. And then put it together and say, okay, what exercises are improving our athletic performance? So, not what weight room and what sprint, but what exercises collectively, what is helping us become better athletes? Because that's what we want to do with training. Unless you are in charge of a powerlifting team, your weight room work should transfer to your sport, to your field, to your game, to the court, whatever the scenario is. And just because someone squats a certain number, deadlifts a certain number, doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to transfer. So we have to look at it as a whole. So then the next question I usually get is, well, how do you know what exercises? Well, that's a great question. I think individually people respond to different stimuluses, depending on how much time you got, how big your groups are. I think there's some big things that are common throughout most people, but I do think that some people respond better to the weight room and other people respond better, out of the weight room. I really do, and somewhere in between. So a key thing that Coach Holler talks about, and he's kind of coined it, record, rank, and publish. Unless we are collecting data, we really don't know what we're doing, if what we're doing is working. And I don't just mean tracking how much weight they're lifting in the weight room. I think that's a common thing, that as long as our weights in the weight room are going up, we're getting better. And that's not always the case. And in fact, a lot of times we reach a point where our risk reward or our rate of return for what we're getting out of the weight room is not really showing up in our athletic performance. So some of those key principles on things that I believe in across the board, no matter the athlete, no matter what we're doing. Something that doesn't get talked about enough: rest and recovery. That's the best performance enhancer. Not, not protein, not creatine, not all these supplements, but simply sleep. Most of our kids do not sleep enough. And a good way to encourage them to sleep more is when you start tracking their data and their sprint times and in jumping and things like that. When you start to see dips in their numbers and things, it's a good time to have a conversation. A lot of times you might find out that they're just not sleeping much. What they eat's important. I always say, if you can get it out of a package and pop it in the microwave, it's probably not good for you, right? If you actually have to cook it though, and you can't microwave it the first time, it's probably quality. And so we try to encourage our athletes to eat, but again, they're high school kids that I'm dealing with, and they're going to swing through the gas station and get a candy bar and things like that. Speed and power is my next priority. I want our athletes to be fast, explosive, and powerful. Like I said, I'm not trying to find that 600-pound deadlifter. I'm not trying to find the guy that squats 500. I'm trying to see, which of our athletes can move the best, which of our athletes can explode the best in these various tests. We always do that at the beginning of the week when we're the most fresh. And I think the key other misconception a lot of people have is that you get faster just in the weight room, that as long as you are squatting and things like that, you're going to get faster. Yes, to an extent for some, others no. All right. Some people might get slower every time you back squat them. Others might get better to a certain point, and some athletes respond pretty well to it. So the best way, though, to get faster is to run at max speed, not a sub-max speed, not a conditioning, but to be able to run at your max velocity. And I'll get into that a little bit about speed reserves and speed capacity and what those kind of mean. And then obviously plyometrics or jump training, learning how to land and absorb force before you create it. Strength, yes, it's important. Obviously, strength is important in several avenues in the weight room, and we'll talk about that from tendon resiliency to, build mass for a football athlete or whatever. But too much of a focus on it could have some adverse effects to your speed or power. And that's where it's important to test some of these things that we're going to talk about. Barry Ross, JT Ayers, who's a track coach in California, and like I said, Brian Kula, who's trained Christian McCaffrey, talk a lot about mass specific force. In other words, maintaining your mass, but being able to create more force at the same body weight instead of always having to gain weight. If you have an athlete that's like right now, our best running back is 6 foot, 203 pounds. He doesn't need to be any heavier. In fact, the heavier he was, the more mass we put on him, the slower he'd be, or the harder he would have to work to generate the same amount of force. But I'd also understand on the flip side, my 135-pound freshman running back needs to gain some mass. So there's times and places where, it's not always mass specific. Sometimes we need that hypertrophy stages, phases, and things like that. I think we all talk about this, proper movement patterns. Kids have to know how to move before we're going to add an external load. And if we add an external load too early, we are actually going to reinforce bad movement patterns, which then are probably going to power us down actually, because our brain's not going to feel safe and it's going to shut things off, and obviously can lead to injury. A couple quotes here from my buddy Dan Fichter. Isometric strength and being able to hold positions are fundamental to locomotion. You have to be able to support yourself in positions. So we usually start in the weight room with isometrics, meaning we want to teach people how to get in certain positions and hold that position before we're going to worry about adding loads and things like that. When posture and positions are correct, the brain has a better opportunity to recognize information from muscle fibers in order to give the correct commands. So when we get ourselves in what I would say a brain-friendly position where it feels safe, because that's literally our brain's job, is to keep us alive. And when we do things that have adverse effects to that, that's what it goes into, fight or flight. And I'm not going to get into the neurological side of training and something we use called RPR in that tonight because I don't have time. But you have to think of the body from a brain standpoint before you think of it from a muscle standpoint. That neurologically, the brain has to operate before any muscle is going to move. And as easy as it was said to me was, cadavers or dead people have muscles. Without the brain and the neurological system, then, nothing's going to move. And so we've got to start there first. And like I said, that's a talk for a different time. Okay. Go forward. Okay. So what things do we record, rank, and publish then? Well, we kind of break ourselves up into different days. So we have what we call max velocity or vertical force day, where we're focusing on top end speed and we're focusing on putting vertical force into the ground, right? What research has shown is it's not how far our stride lengths are and how far we step or how long they are. It's all about the force that we're putting into the ground and that rate of force development. And so we do things like a 10-yard fly, a 20-yard fly, 30. You can lengthen them out how you want. We do vertical jump testing, drop jump, depth jump. I'm going to show you videos on this. A sound test where we measure. And a fly run is just they have an opportunity to get up to speed, and then we measure a certain segment. Then we have an acceleration or a horizontal force day. You know, most of our sports are played in acceleration. So we have different starts that we use. We do broad jump, triple broad jump. You can do medicine ball throw. And then we don't do tons of change of direction things. We probably do more in terms of the reactionary agility and obstacle course. But a lot of sports are going to take care of a lot of that stuff. And I kind of have to pick my poison when my class periods sometimes are only 38 minutes long and such. And so that's not something we focus a ton on. And we don't do the speed ladders or any of those things where we're not challenging our athletes to make decisions in space and move. I'm pretty old school in terms of how I collect the data. So I've got everyone's names based upon where they are in my class alphabetically. I have their average time and their best time. So they know, because I didn't always do that. And they would always ask, hey, where's that? And I'd say, hey, you just ran your PR, or, hey, that's good. You're still under your average. I mean, kid's not going to PR every single day. And then I've got the cells that we do that. And then I transfer all of that stuff over into Google Sheets. And so I've got spreadsheets that are set up that tell me where they were last year. This is just a 40-yard dash, just our top guys, where they are this year as an average. Their very best. And by best, I mean, I always average their top 2 out of 3. And if they have a time that's kind of wonky, that's way out there, let's say they ran a 484, a 478, and then they have like a 450, I would make them verify that 450. And if they came back and ran like a 482, I would throw that one out. So we're always averaging the best 2 out of 3. So this isn't the best time that they've ever had. And by time, we use what's called a free lap system. We got ours from Simply Faster. It works extremely well. It's super easy to set up. You could use it in football practice. It's wireless. It's Bluetooth. If you buy this system, the kids wear chips on their belt and it sends it to your phone. It's super simple. Other things, here's a vertical jump. So we've got a Just Jump mat, which you'll see in a few of the videos that we record vertical jump. Before we had the Just Jump mat, we recorded them we had tape on the wall, super old school. But again, we're tracking data across the board. What's happening with these athletes, and you can see because of COVID, how much missed training sessions that these athletes had as we had quarantines and things going on. So when we talk max velocity, we're talking about the highest possible sprint speed that you can achieve. So what is the fastest? And I like the 10-yard fly or the 10 meter. My kids like the 10-yard because a lot of them are football. And I think it has, some of the better numbers, like a 100 is going over 20 mile an hour in a 10-yard fly. And so, a 100 and a 10-meter fly is 30.37 miles per hour. That's pretty hard to achieve. So I like challenging kids to get to that 100 and a 10-yard fly. And I'll kind of explain how I do that. And then the reason that we focus so much on max velocity is, and people always say, well, what about acceleration? What about conditioning? How much of that stuff you do? We don't do a ton of conditioning, because if you train slow, you're going to run slow. And so we want to raise the ceiling on all of our athletes. And you can kind of see this cool little chart from Derek Hansen of what happens at your submax, or what I call your game speed, right? If you're slow, which 10.9 meters a second is not slow, but if you're slow, you're going to be really slow in a game. If you're super fast, even though you're not going to play the game at as fast as you are, you're going to be very game fast. And so the faster we get in that top end speed, the faster we're going to be. And I always think of it like this: why are my fastest guys never tired in the conditioning? Why are they always finishing? Why are my slowest guys always finishing last? And why are they always tired? And I think of it like this: like my fastest guy might be using 75% of his ceiling to run a conditioning, whereas my slowest guy is probably trying to use 100%, and he just physically can't do it. we work a ton on sprint mechanics, and I know this is a debatable topic, you know, how much mechanic works that you do, especially for a team sport athlete. I think from an injury prevention standpoint, and from just a body movement standpoint, I think it's very important to teach kids how to move in the cross crawl pattern and sprint mechanics. And so we do a ton of those. We call them speed drills. We do them at the beginning of all of our workout sessions, including practice. So we got rid of dynamic warm-ups. So we don't do that type of stuff. We do not static stretch. We do these as drills, and I call them drills so that kids focus on them. When you call something a warm-up, it kind of gives kids permission to take it slow and take it easy. We want our kids to be very focused when we're doing these speed drills. Here's some pictures of us working on some feet and ankle stuff. I mean, the first thing that hits the ground is your foot, and I'll show you some befores and after. And if our feet and ankles don't work properly, I mean, I think some studies, and I don't remember the exact study Chris Corpus talked about, but you can lose up to 75% of your power output because of poor foot function, ankle function, because that power, instead of going in the direction that you want to go, if my foot hits, right, and it hits and it's pointed in, it's pointed out, then I have to do something else. My body has to compensate for bad foot function, and I'm wasting power, and I'm also compensating in some fashion. Like I said, I'll show you some befores and after. So here's what a good tripod position, where the athlete's over the ball of their big toe. They're able to get up onto what's known as the forefoot. I mean, that's what should happen when that foot hits the ground. And a lot of us, including me, people that have poor foot function, they roll to the outside. Their ankles collapse, and you're going to see them spin out. That's a common thing. I get people that message me, "Hey, I got these athletes, their foot hits, they spin," and you'll be able to see some of the things. So here's just some of the progressions that we do. We call these boom booms just because when you hit the ground, it just boom boom. So this is some of our just rudimentary stuff. Anytime you can take the arms away, the lower body has to be pretty good. So a lot of us use our arms kind of like as rudders as we run. If you got those kids that swing their arms and do all this, well, it's probably because they're literally compensating for what's going on in their lower body. So if you take the athletes, whether arms in the air, they cross them, when you take that away, then their foot has to hit much better because they don't have that arm to compensate with what's going on. We go through a hop and a bound series. We don't just start with regular bounding. Kids have trouble doing those things, absorbing force and or generating. So we start just with a basic series, just single leg hops over a hurdle. The hurdle just kind of being a benchmark to get up and over. And you'll see some good and some bad on how we're absorbing force. We'll go a little bit faster, looking for the heel not to collapse. You can see the heel collapsing on that second athlete. It tells you a lot about poor ankle function. Then we'll lengthen them out a little bit. Again, we're doing same leg. So a hop would be, for me, jumping and landing on the same leg. A bound would be switching. So again, we're starting from a rudimentary standpoint, especially when we started back after COVID, and we went about 4 or 5 months without any training at all. Fast forward, you see it's going a little bit faster there. And then here's us really trying to absorb that. So this is one of our better guys. He's just working on hitting, exploding back up. I like using the mini hurdles, telling them to jump as high as they can over it in that fashion. So we go through that. We teach that. We teach how a 2-foot land, just call them altitude drops. So you're dropping from a certain altitude. It was taught to me in terms of, from a brain standpoint, if your body doesn't feel comfortable landing from a certain height, let's say a 30-inch landing, then you're never going to generate a 30-inch vertical jump if your body doesn't feel safe landing it. So we'll do different things where we'll focus on not collapsing. We'll do a depth jump after a pause, and then we'll do them all in a row. So these are all progressions that we'll go through, and kids may stay at certain progressions for a long time, depending on where they're at. Here's us doing some hurdle jumps. We call these hurdle jumps as part of our speed drills. So we're generating power up and over an imaginary hurdle. You can use hurdles. I've got kids at many different athletic abilities. And so if I try to get a hurdle height out there, I'll have some kids that it's good for and others that it's not. We're trying to teach them to get up as high as they can and get those feet up and over the hurdle. We do a ton of wickets or mini hurdle runs all along a line, so we can be striking on each side of that line, and we can be staying off the midline, which is a common problem. You see us here, we're using broken hockey sticks. This kid's using a water bag filled with about 25% water, and that water sloshes around. And again, it challenges you to make sure your foot strike is where it needs to be. And so here's a couple things that happen when we strike midline and we strike on the outside of our foot and our foot spins. You can see what happens to the hip. You can see what happens to the shoulders. We throw our head a certain way, and there's no symmetry there. So then after going through drills, coming back, testing, retesting video, looking at this data, you can see the difference between where he's at, how much more this heel is under that earlobe and not across the opposite side. Here's an athlete that has a girl athlete with a ton of backside mechanics. And then here you can see what's happening as her foot's in that landing phase, as she's coming through much easier, and she's going to be able to generate more force. And then you can see one of our other better senior athletes here in much better positionings. And so we work on that on a consistent basis. Here's us running a 10-yard fly. So then we take those mechanics, and you can see those free lap cones. There was one up there about 10 yards, and then it sends it to my phone. Here's the just jump mat. So we're just measuring that. It's also, you can see that cord there. It sends it there. See another one of our athletes. Here we are, again, an older athlete with a depth jump. We're trying to jump as high as we are landing from. So he's probably on a 2-foot box there. See, he's getting back up to that height. Here we are with our 6-foot bound test. So we just tell the athletes from a 2-point start, we're wanting them to jump 6 times, and we're measuring the distance each time, and really teach them to put force into the ground on that single leg. And once you put a tape measure out there, I mean, these kids really try. And I think he's jumping 52 or 54 there in 6 bounds. And then acceleration, I think we all know what acceleration is, that change in velocity over time, right? Most of our sports are played in that. So we've got our max V stuff, and then we do things with acceleration and shin angle change. So these are some of the basic drills where we're teaching our athletes how to get as horizontal of a shin angle as we can. So this is just a basic 2-foot instead of kind of that falling start. And then we do it off of a single leg. And you'll see them, we're trying to get that shin angle down and get that good 4-foot rocker position. Okay. You'll see us coming out of a 2-point here off the ground. This is one of the more harder ones, being able to keep that shin angle. Okay. And then you'll see us, let me go forward here a little bit, speed up a little bit. Here we are coming out of that same leg. Again, these are all acceleration type activities where you can see my guy here in the front, my older athlete. Watch him. Look at this shin angle change, and look at the straight lines he's creating, and then look at my freshman athlete here. And you can see how his shin's vertical, and you can see how he's bent over, and that's not what we're looking for. And then we carry that over to just a basic standing broad jump, and you can see the same shin angle change. And we're measuring power output here. These are all things that we're record ranking and publishes, from broad jump to the 6 bounds to 10-yard flies, 40s, things like that. Here we do it from a triple broad jump. So now we're going to do 3 consecutive. Again, you can see the shin angles. That's why I slowed it down. Absorbing, you can see him drop the shins, exploding out. And so we're measuring how far he gets I call it a triple broad jump. There's no triple jump. If you're familiar with that as a track exercise, it's just 3. I should just call it the 3 broad jump test. For some reason I called it triple broad jump, and that's just what I called it. So that's some of the things that we test from a data perspective to see, if what we're doing in the weight room. So a little bit quickly here about the weight room, where does it fit in? Well, obviously, growth hormone and testosterone. That's what we're looking for in the weight room, right? We get a tissue adaptation when we put an external load on our body, and we lift it. We're also looking for that muscle fiber conversion, right, to those fast twitch muscles. From an explosive point of view, that's what we're looking for. When you can load down in an isometric some of your techniques, I think that's good. You can load the body, you can get strong in positions, whether that's football athlete, a sprinter. I think that's important. We already talked about tendon and ligament resiliency. And then as we eventually get to a position of strength, adequate strength, then we transition to power development, or the ability to apply that force and develop it in a faster fashion. So a couple quotes here I like. Again, I mentioned Zach. Determine key performance indicators and or the skill itself, and track when performance no longer improves when the strength continues to go up. So whatever you determine to be an appropriate test for you, when that stops increasing as the strength continues to go up, is the point that occurs when it's safe to say that transfer from strength may not be occurring anymore. So in other words, the more strength work you do, you're not seeing that performance out on the field, or whatever important indicator you're using. And then Matt Ray at Alabama, obviously they had a phenomenal year in college football. They're kind of changing the landscape of S&C at the college level. Said for high school and collegiate football players, a dual focus on strength and power until the athlete achieves 1.7 body weight in the squat. Above that, a more substantial focus on power improvement will have a greater impact on speed. And I personally don't use the 1.7. That's what he's collected through his data and his research. We're always tracking the weights that we're using and those other metrics to see, okay, we've kind of gotten stagnant in our jumps and in our sprints. Maybe we need to transition to a speed power phase and quit moving heavy weight. And then this is a good, just kind of a diagram, right? Here's where we are for a long time from a strength and a weight room perspective. When we get these kids that are pretty young and green, then we kind of hit this point where, okay, all this input we're putting in and we're not getting much of a rate of return. And then eventually the harder we push to keep adding weight to the squat bar, to the deadlift or the bench press, then we start getting a negative return. And so it's not always a positive thing. You could go in the weight room for a period of time and see some negatives. And so this is just a 3-day example. I want to finish with this, what this might look like. So we would have a max V day, an acceleration and explosive lift, or kind of total body, and then a max V and a lower, or we could substitute for a change of direction depending on where we're at. And so we always do our drill work and our sprint jump work first, and then we do various variations, obviously bench press, inverted row, pull-ups, shoulder, tricep, things like that. And then we have a vertical press, and I'm sure things that you guys all do. We do that. I go back and forth on the clean. These are just things. Some people swear by the clean. Others would rather just hex bar jump or dumbbell jump from a loaded position and get the same power output. I don't. It's one thing I don't have yet is a fancy like a VMAX Pro or something that's going to measure peak power or average power output. That's our next step. And then you can see I save our lower body lift whenever I know we're going to have the most recovery. So like right now, our big night is Friday night. We'll hit our lower lift on Monday. But when we're out of season, we're going to hit that when we got the weekend to recover. So, and then I threw in some curls at the end just for fun, as I talked a lot about not the weight room, and then I added some things in there at the end. So I try to go fast. I know I probably went over by 5 minutes or so, but I'll stop the share. And if there's time, I'll take some questions.
That's awesome. Yeah, guys, if you have any questions, just go ahead and unmute yourselves and ask away.
I mean, I could do another hour on the weight room and some of the things that we're doing. I feel like more. Yeah, go ahead.
Are you implementing like periodization? Do you find it difficult getting kids to peak when they're playing 3-4 different sports in a year?
Yeah, that's hard. And so, like right now, we got back in the weight room in November, and so from November to Christmas break, we ran a GPP. Just, hey, remember, guys, this is how to do these movements. And so we spent a lot of time on that. And then I had freshmen that I normally would have taken care of a lot of that in the summer. And then we ran triphasic. So we ran eccentric, isometric phase. We went for strength development for about 6 to 8 weeks because no one was in a season still. We still had no sports. So now that seasons have started, we transition into a power phase. And then we're eventually going to transition into a speed phase, as most of our kids are going to be playing baseball, softball. But I will, guys that aren't going to be in those spring sports, we'll have a kind of a recovery period coming off of this football season. And then for the guys that need it, I'll transition them back into a strength building phase. You know, some of our linemen that don't play anything else that still aren't strong enough yet. So yeah, definitely we try to progress and kids progress. So I have a clipboard and I had to put this on there and I have percentages and I have everyone's stuff for lifts. But then I go around and then every day I'm like scratching this out and adding this. How does that feel? That looks good. Do you think you can add? So, I mean, I prescribe them what I think, but everyone progresses. So one kid may say, okay, yes, we're at the same percentage, but you're moving it super slow. You're flying. So then we'll say, hey, let's add 10, let's add 20. And that's where that VMAX Pro, if I was saying, hey guys, we want to fall in that 7 meters a second, or sorry, 0.7 meters a second. So that's the weight we want to use. That would eliminate some of that guesswork on percentages because not everyone progresses at the same time. And I think that velocity based stuff would be really great for all these athletes that are all constantly in sport, because one day 185 may move. Let's say it's a hex bar deadlift. 205 might move at 0.65 meters a second. The next week, because they've had 3 games, 205 may move at like 0.45 meters a second. Well, that day we need to lower the weight, and kids don't ever want to lower the weight. And if their buddy in their lifting group has 10 more pounds on there, then they want to try to do it no matter what happens. And so it's hard when you have a large weight room setting. And that's kind of, we're in this big auxiliary gym now because of COVID. And my biggest class has my 17 first year lifters in it. And so I keep going back and forth telling this kid to take weight off. And so it's a constant battle, but perfect world. I want to try to progress them as individually as I can, but that's hard to do.
So do you start like all your freshmen, all the 9th graders, all kind of on the same program and then start to tailor from there?
Yeah. So we started with, like, from a squat perspective, I mean, I like bodyweight squats. That's where we very first started. I kind of do a top-down approach, I guess. I always start from a high squat position, and then we progress lower. They screw up a lot less if they're going to a high box position. And then we transition into zombie squats, where we're just holding a bar on our shoulders. And then we progress to front squat. So that literally took 12 weeks probably. And then we got pretty good at front squat. And now for this power phase, we've introduced a high box squat, back squat. So we're at about that, 45 degrees. So we're not close to parallel. I call it kind of an athletic squat position, where you would be in your stance as a lineman, where you would be if you're coming out of the blocks. And so that's where we're focused on, because some of my kids had never back squatted. But I like teaching that front squat at the beginning because, you can have an ugly back squat and still squat 315. You cannot have an ugly front squat and squat much more than 95 pounds. So it really teaches them that positioning.
Have you noticed any significant decline in injuries since really like amping up the program?
Yeah. We so the crazy thing because I talk a lot about sprint-based football as well. So we take this approach to football. Like right now, our practices are an hour and a half. We don't condition. Everything is sprint-based. We have sprint days and non-sprint days, which are really days that we're going to ramp it up, and then days we're going to back it off a little bit. We've not had any hamstring injuries. Our biggest injury, and we're on our third one in 3 years, is a broken hand. Just crazy things like that. We've had no soft tissue injuries in the last 3 seasons, and we've only had 2 or 3 JV concussions, none at the varsity level. So we were probably averaging at least 4 to 6, probably, and some of that was that concussions were a huge craze 4 and 5 years ago. But we have not had a varsity concussion in the last really 3.5 years. When we went to the state championship game 2 years ago in 2018, we dressed our entire roster for 14 games without a single varsity guy missing. And we dressed 55 guys in the state championship game. And so we've seen, I think some people are scared to sprint. I mean, that's why the NFL doesn't do it. I think they're scared that someone's going to blow a hammy. But most guys that I respect in the sprinting world think that sprinting is the best way there's no bulletproof mode to bulletproof your hamstrings. But, if you've got a choice between a Nordic curl and a sprint, sprinting is going to have a better effect of helping you stay away from hamstring injuries. It's when you don't sprint and you lift, you do all sub maximum running, and then you go out and try to go is when that bad stuff happens. So, and the best thing is our worst athletes make the most improvement in our sprint stuff. So our linemen improve way better than our fast guys. Their ceiling is unbelievable when it comes to speed. And I'm wearing and I didn't put this in there, but I'm wearing a 20, I don't even know how to show you here. I'm wearing a 20 mile an hour wristband. So we've got mile per hour wristbands for all of our guys. I got to figure out something for our linemen because, this is mainly for our skill guys. But so it's for us. It pushes them to continue to sprint as opposed to running a gasser or something like that where they're going to finish last.
Nice. Any other questions? Well, Coach Dixon, thanks for running off the field, grabbing food quickly, and doing the presentation. Yeah. We appreciate it. And good luck in the game this weekend.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for listening, guys. I kind of went fast here. Let me share this you disabled it, but if you need my contact information, the easiest way, I'll put it in the chat real quick. Perfect. I think I kind of went through that fast. Do this here. .com. That's my email, but Coach B Dixon at my Twitter is probably the best way because my emails, I'm in the weight room, I'm in the gym, I'm in my office. Emails seem to disappear on me sometimes because I won't see it come through. But I'll usually carve out some time each week to go through my Twitter direct messages and respond to them. So I feel like that's a pretty easy way if you want to get a hold of me is to write that down and send me a message, and if I don't get back with you in a decent, timely fashion, send it again. You won't offend me. So I may not have the answers, but I can tell you what we've tried to do. So I appreciate you guys.
Awesome. Great job. Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you.
All righty. Thanks, Coach Dixon. That was awesome. Moving along, we've got Craig Smith, a buddy of mine here on the call. Jim Cooper brought Craig to our group about 4 weeks ago, and Craig coached Jim way back in the day, back at the UBC, and they won a Vanier Cup together, and Craig's going to share sort of the rest of his story, how he got into coaching and sort of on into player personnel in the CFL and traveled all over the States and knows where every good barbecue is from here to the Texas Panhandle. So, Craig, if you want to take it away. Paul, I think's got the screen share up for you, so go ahead.
It says it hosts disabled participant screen sharing.
You should be good to go now, sir.
Okay, here we go. Got to find my just bear with me.
You're all good. It's almost like we should do a cheers here for St. Patty's Day.
Yeah, no kidding.
I should run to the fridge and grab one real quick. Here, while you're doing that, I'm going to run to the fridge.
Don't get us thirsty, man.
Chris, you got your stuff figured out, I see.
Okay, so let's zoom.
Colson, you don't look too drunk, just a little bit.
He doesn't have his wife's MacBook tonight, so he's going to be quiet. He knows he'll freeze up on that Chromebook.
Yeah, probably. I'm trying a different one here, though. We'll blame the beer this time, not the hardware. Which is also something I said to my wife, but that's way different.
This went so good in the dry run.
This is the Saskatchewan to Winnipeg problem. Saskatchewan to Ontario was fine earlier, Paul. We did a test run.
Uh-oh. It's Winnipeg taking it to Saskatchewan right now. What's it telling you?
Well, I'm trying to get, like I have my PowerPoint up. Now I'm trying to get the Zoom back. And it just says my personal meeting ID. Oh.
You should probably see a little square maybe up in your corner, Craig, that you may have to expand that back to get the screen back.
There we go.
There he is. There we go. Perfect.
All right. Sorry for that, guys. I'm really happy to be able to talk about player personnel. You know, it's something that I got into, and I've been doing it for 17 years until the good old cancer hit me in the eyes and took me out. But a couple of things I just want, you know, an opening remark. I'm no genius. You know, if you looked at my transcripts from the University of Manitoba, you know, that could tell you a lot. But I did get my degree, and you know, way back, you know, it's funny. I went to a clinic at the University of Washington, and the dog father, Don James, he spoke at it, and he brought something to my attention. Faith, family, football, and fun. And I'm sure a lot of you probably have seen something like that. Well, my fun was out of whack. My fun was a little further up than a lot of those things. You know, so beer and women, and that was my top priority way back then. Then I got it figured out. And, you know, obviously I'm not perfect. I made some mistakes, but I finally found something. And thank God for football, because if it wasn't for football, I don't know, you know, I'd be a computer operator at the University of British Columbia, which was fine, made some decent money, but it wasn't a passion. and my development, it was a good foundation for what I was doing. My wife, July the 1st, 1990 was the turning point. That was the first practice that I went to. I was sitting on my fat butt in the computer room at the University of British Columbia. And I was going through the province newspaper, and I looked, and it was, where they have the notice board. It said football coaches wanted, and Westside. Well, Westside was real close to where the University of British Columbia was. And so I called, and they said, well, we got an opening for Pee Wee. I said, Pee Wee? I said, I don't know if I want to coach Pee Wee. I would rather coach the older guys. He says, well, that's what we got. Why don't you come out? July 1st, 1990 was the day. And again, that changed my life. That didn't make me want to be a professional in football, but it sure started the passion for the game of football. And from that time, I went from the Pee Wees to the pros in 11 years. And during that time, again, passion, just we went all over the place. We joined the AFCA, went to the conventions, rubbed elbows with some of those great coaches, listened to a lot of those great coaches. And that was the start. And thank God for that, making that decision. It's funny because I thought, I won't be able to watch the game. I won't be able to do this, won't be able to do that. We used to travel a fair bit when we moved to the West Coast, going down to the San Francisco, the Oregon coast, etc. But that was the start. And like I say, I got there. My wife says September 14th, 1985 is the date that changed my life. Well, that's when we got married. So that's her take. But here's the career. I started with the Westside Warriors, Pee Wee. I coached 5 years with Westside, learning a ton. Like I said, I couldn't get enough. I bought books. I went to clinics. I got my level 3 in coaching. Just kept on working as hard as I could. Then went to South Delta with Brian Higgins, a guy that was an amazing coach on the West Coast. He was a lawyer at UBC, and he was a football coach. Then by Jerry Mollison, Casey Smith, I got asked in 1995 to be a guest coach at the University of British Columbia. And Coop doesn't know this, but I went out there and I was shitting my pants. I was a guy that was learning, and man, it was nerve wracking. But I just kept on going and kept on working, and we won the Vanier in '97, and just again learn. Got asked to be a guest coach with the BC Lions in 1999, and I had mentioned that I got a degree from the University of Manitoba. Well, at Red River Community College, I also got a certificate in computer programming. That was an amazing thing to do. That got me used to computers. It got me not afraid of computers, and it really helped me. The computer skills really helped me with regards to the BC Lions. And when we finished in 1999, when we finished training camp, Pau got me into the office and said, "What are you doing in the summer?" And I said, well, I'll be working at UEC, and he said, why don't you come out? And, that was the start of it. And in 2000, I was on the staff. I was an offensive assistant quality control, helping with the receivers. We won the Grey Cup that year. Then, as soon as we won the Grey Cup, Adam Rita, who gave me my big break, he's helped me immensely. He said, we had a meeting at the end of the year. He didn't even tell me. He said, I'm bringing Craig into personnel. Now, a few years back, I had called Adam, and I asked him, I said, how did somebody get into player personnel? I said, what about, what could I do? He said, well, give BC a call, because they don't have anybody doing it. They didn't have the director of player personnel, but they had the general manager, Greg Month, who did the player personnel. So I called Adam. He said, yeah, well, right now, no, we're full. Greg does that and all that kind of stuff. So, okay. But he put that in his mind. And then when we won the Grey Cup, he saw my work ethic, and he said, I'm bringing Craig in. And, that was the start in 2001. That was the start of my player personnel career. So, and I worked with BC, Hamilton, back to BC and Saskatchewan, and then Winnipeg. And then in 2017, October 19th, I got the diagnosis of leukemia, and then had another battle and had to work hard at that. Obviously, you get a few cards when you're when you're in the league. And I loved every place that I've been. Loved living in Hamilton, obviously Vancouver. We moved out there before football. I think Vancouver is a fantastic place. I really like Regina here. I love working for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and of course Winnipeg. I'm born and raised in Winnipeg. I was a Bomber fan, so it was a treat for me to go there. That bottom card, I was out of work, so I made my own cards just to distribute, because I would go down. I'd still do things. I'd go down to the Senior Bowl and stuff like that and talk to people. So this is a year. This is a year for player personnel. This is what I would go through. And in November, in the Grey Cup, win it, lose it, losing the playoffs, miss the playoffs. I did them all. Dom, how great was 2013 when we drank out of the cup? It was fantastic, and I did it in 2000. Lost twice, and of course, lost in the playoffs and missed the playoffs. So it was all over the place. But that's November. Once November's done, you kind of take. Usually, what I did, I'd take a couple days off, and then I'd head down. We had a place in Texas, so we'd head down to a place called Westlaco. It was an hour from South Padre Island, and it was 7 miles from the Mexican border. That was a great place because I got away from the winter, because I can't stand winter. We moved from Winnipeg to Vancouver for a reason. But the big thing is going down there, they had ESPN. I could watch games. They had fantastic internet, so I could download games. It was great to be down there. And the other thing is you could fly relatively cheap. If I had to fly from Vancouver, or if I had to fly from Regina, it was quite costly to go to a lot of the bowl games that I went to and all-star games. So it was a great place. There was 2 airports that I could fly out of, Harlingen and McAllen. And so I could get to those games. December and January, you could take a look at bowl games and NCAA playoff games. Driving down, usually I'd stop in Fargo because they would be in the playoffs. So I saw Ryan Smith there, and we got Ryan Smith in Saskatchewan. He was one of the guys that I thought was a pretty darn good kid. Not very big, but he ran 4.48 or something like that. And some of our guys in our organization were leery about bringing him in. Brendan, thank God for Brendan, said we're taking him. We brought him down to the camp in Florida, and he showed well. So, and we kept him. And he played a couple of years, 3 years, and then he said, "Well, I've had enough. I've got a really good opportunity in finance." So he left. So January again, more All-Star games. Some All-Star games. The obvious ones: East-West Shrine, NFLPA, Senior Bowl, College Gridiron Showcase, stuff like that. I remember when I was way back, and you'd have Christmas at home, and you'd sit and you'd watch that Blue-Gray game on December 25th on Christmas Day, and you kind of think, man, that would be horrible. You're not having Christmas at home, and you're on the road. Well, guess what? That's what I did. A number of times, Kathy and I, we would have. We'd stop at a truck stop for our Christmas dinner, which, by the way, a lot of times were good, or a barbecue place to have the barbecue turkey with a little bit of some other things as well. So, but that was the big thing. It was attending those. NFL Europe when it was going. XFL, obviously XFL's in the news now, and I'll be on Rod Peterson's show on Friday to talk a little bit about that and give him my 2 cents worth with regards to the Canadian game. And hopefully it can stay the same. And in February, we had NCAA Pro Days, the NFL Combine. I went to the Combine once. I timed Chris Johnson at 4.28, the fastest guy I ever timed. It was incredible. I timed every player at that Combine, and got to rub elbows, and it was a great experience. But generally speaking, like I was out of work at that time, generally speaking, we don't like to allow CFL guys. Some CFL guys, they'll have the contacts to be able to get into that. But and then March, more pro days. Then we get to the regional combines, which I loved. I thought that was the greatest thing. You go to Edmonton, you'd see 50 players. You go to either Quebec City or Montreal to see the East, and you get to see 50 players there. Then Toronto, before the excuse me for a sec. Go to Toronto before the main CFL evaluation camp, and then the big CFL evaluation camp. You get to see so many kids. You get to see the testings. they put on the pads, you get to see them doing stuff. So it was just a fantastic thing. And boy, I miss doing that. April, a lot of times we'd have workouts down in Florida. We'd have we go to IMG and have some ball air camps. And so when we were down there, then what I would do is I'd go to a lot of the different schools. I went to Miami, went to UCF, and Danny Barrett and Charlie Taff were there. USF over to Bethune-Cookman, and things like that. It was great. Get to see players, and then of course we would have our CFL free agent camps, where a lot of agents would say, it's just a meat market. But I'll tell you something, if your guy comes there and he runs and he does a good job, there's a chance that he's going to get signed. So if you don't come, you're not going to make it. But you know what? There's a lot of guys that would come to those things, and you just wonder what they think. And what do you think that the CFL is? A lot of times there's guys there that there's no way they should have been there. But hey, they wanted to work out for a pro team. In May, more possible free agent camps, and then we get going with regards to the training camps. May and June, I neglected to put that in, but many times I would travel to the preseason games. And when I was with Winnipeg, I liked what they did. They gave guys two teams. So I had BC and Saskatchewan, obviously, because I lived in Regina. So I was able to take a look at those guys, and then if they were going to cut some guys, and those are the guys that we'd like to get. So it was good. I'd go to games, I'd watch some film on them, and we'd have a book on some of those guys if they got cut. Cutting CFL games. So there we go. That's what I was just talking about with the possible CFL cuts. Then the NFL camps, and I'll tell you something. I didn't start the NFL camps until I think it was Wally got me to do it first. It was 2003. I think it was 18. I think I had 18 teams. Well, there was more. There was 25 teams that I hit on the NFL camp deal. And the great thing about some of those places, they allowed you film. Film was like gold. You could sit there, watch the one-on-ones. You can watch whatever. Times I'd be there 6-7 hours, just sitting there watching some film. Film is so critical. It's just so important to, you know the deal. Film doesn't lie, but you just get to go back and forth, and you can see that, right? You can just see what a kid does, and it's so critical. So I was so happy with a lot of these guys. Some of the teams were just incredible with what they do. They come on for lunch. You come down in the lunches there. Holy cow! It's just the spreads that they have, and just incredible, and just much appreciative. They could do more for us than we could do for them, and to go there. I mean, I'm telling you, you're a guest. You make sure you treat it properly. You make sure you go there and you do the right thing, and don't. They tell you where to go, you go there. You don't go anywhere else. You don't sneak. You make sure you're doing what they tell you to, because they certainly can help you out. And in the NFL camps, we always had 32 teams covered, and I'll talk about that a little later. And then, of course, September to November. I've talked about this before. Going from the NFL to the CIS or youth sport or whatever you want to call it. Obviously the speed and all that kind of stuff. It was an adjustment for the first little bit, but who cares? I just love going coast to coast, and thank God for Brendan Tammond. Brendan allowed me to go to all these different places right across Canada, and I've met a lot of you guys because of my travels, and respect Canadian college coaches. This is my fourth week here with regards to listening to a lot of the client talks, and it's totally incredible. And like I said, I've watched a lot of the American coaches. I've seen clinic talks from them. You guys don't take a backseat to those guys. The amount of knowledge that you guys have, how you communicate it, it's phenomenal. And just keep doing what you're doing. It's fantastic. Football in Canada is in good shape with guys like you. Obviously, I would go down and do some Canadians at NCAA schools, and watching practice and games and stuff like that, which was a treat. And then December, regroup and do it all over again. So that was the year. Okay, what to look for in general. Okay. Again, I loved working in player personnel. I loved my job. I was so fortunate, passionate. I was so blessed to be in the profession. Guys who helped me out. Cal Murphy. Like I said, I called Cal. He told me to call Adam. But way back at the New Orleans convention in 1995, I was at that time I was coaching high school with Brian Higgins, and so we went down to the New Orleans convention. I had a pretty good relationship with Cal. I would see him at conventions. First time was in 1994. He got us tickets to the last CFL dinner at that AFCA convention, and I thought that was fantastic. Yeah, I was talking to him. I waited for him probably for 45 minutes in the lobby. He was talking with the guy by the name of Bill Dietrich. I waited and waited and waited. Cal was done. Bam! I was on him. So I was talking. And then I talked with him for 45 minutes. And then the night was over. We went upstairs and we were at the Hilton right by Disneyland. He was going one. We were on the same floor. He was going one way. I was going the other. And Cal said, "You got tickets for the thing tomorrow? The CFL dinner?" I said, "No, it says on the thing. It's just it's invitation only. Come to my room tomorrow at 3:00. And I said, "Are you kidding?" I said, "No, yeah, we'll get you some tickets." Man, went to that, and I was again, you're just, it's incredible. Like I was in there, I was so dang nervous. I was sweating like a pig. I had to go to the washroom and take a look to see if I was sweating so bad that you could tell from my shirt. Cal Murphy was in there. Tom Clements was in there. Lyle Bauer, Greg Fulton, who used to be in the CFL offices. I'm a high school coach, and I'm in with these guys. But anyway, Cal was and Cal, like, my thought for me was I was going to keep on doing it until I died. And that's essentially what Cal did. I remember seeing Sammy at the Independence Bowl. Sammy Garza was his son-in-law. And we were talking. I always would ask, "How's Cal doing?" And he said, "Well, not too good." And he mentioned, he said, "You know what? Cal's going to die with the cowboy in his hand." Because that's the way Cal was. Work, work, work. And that's what I wanted to do until, well, hopefully I can get back, but we'll see. But Cal was great with me, and thank God for Cal. So feet, hips, hands, and eyes. When I go to a practice, it's funny because last week when Sean talked, he really emphasized the eyes with regards to the defensive backs. And obviously I looked at eyes, but I didn't emphasize it probably as much as I should have. Obviously eyes, when you're catching the football, when you see a guy who's catching the ball and his chin's away from the football, so his eyes aren't on the ball, you can see his eyes. Eyes with regards to a running back, when he goes through the hole. Vision, does he have that? So there's things that if I do it again, I would obviously concentrate more on that. Feet, critical. Doesn't matter what position you are. If you're a big old offensive lineman, you want to see feet. You want to see those feet moving. You don't want to see that bend in the waist. You want to see, a body control, etc. like that. Hips and hands. Hands are so critical in this game. God gave us hands, and you got to use them as a football player. Obviously, as a receiver, you gotta use them. And we'll go through some position specific stuff later, but hands are so critical. Offensive line, hands, not for holding, but for getting those hands inside, using those things that will allow that strength of your body to control that guy in front of you. Same with the other side. Hands, who's getting their hands on first? If you can get your hands there first, you've got a chance to win. So obviously those things, you're looking at. And physical, okay, body type. There's a number of different things that I'll talk about with regards to that. Height, weight, hand, and arm length. Obviously, different positions. When you're a tackle, you'd like to have that length. You'd like to have a guy 6'6" with 34-inch arms. Weight. In the CFL, probably get to it later, but in the CFL, you want your tackles. I'd like to have, when I was scouting, I wanted to look at tackles that were, I wouldn't say slender, you'd have to have, they have to have body weight, but you'd like to, that nice athletic type length with, with obviously muscle and stuff like that. But then hands, got to have hands, obviously the big hands, that makes a difference. I think when I was at the Senior Bowl all the time, I would go and I'd sit and I'd watch the height weights, and they distribute a sheet with everything, and they do the hand and the arm measurement before, so that would be on before they did the height. So that was something that we could record on. Biggest hand I ever saw was a tackle. I can't remember his name, but he was from Boston College, and it was 11 and a half. And I'm thinking, my God, 11 and a half, but hey, that's going to help you play. Thick wrists, I believe, you get that thickness, that's going to help you with regards to playing this game. And then, with the possibility of not getting injured. Body composition, is he going to be, flabby? Is he going to be something that's going to take away from his body control? That type of thing. And then you get into the speed, quickness, the change of direction, flexibility, balance, all those different things with regards to athleticism. You're obviously looking for all that kind of stuff. Knee bend for offensive linemen. Is he a waist bender? Is he on his waist? Is he bending over with the knees way too far over the toes? Is a guy on his heels? That control, that balance, those types of different things that are going to make you a better player. Words that I always use, and a lot of times when I'm writing up and stuff like that, fluid. Is a guy fluid? Especially DBs. Strength. Is a guy strong? Does he have that strength to on the field? On the field. Explosion. Burst. Does a guy have a burst? Can he burst through that hole? Can he fly around? And I always, with regards to linebackers, can a guy fly around? Can he react and then fly around? And then finish. Does a guy finish? There's a guy that is looking at me right now, Don Picard. I'd have him on my team any day of the week. If you ever watch him play, he had that mean streak, and that mean streak was the world. That's the kind of guy that you want. He would do the job. He would finish his blocks, and I don't know if he ever laughed at the guy, but he that's the kind of guy that I would look for. A guy that finished the play. Toughness. Is a kid. Is he a striker? Because he come up and is he knock the shit out of you? Is there shock value in his in play? Do the tests transfer to this field? Us idiots with the stopwatch and all that kind of stuff, we take a long look at a lot of those things. Combine, that's all about that, But can he play football? Tarzan James, he look like Tarzan, play like Jane. Man, I've seen some guys who look like Tarzan. You're going, holy shit. No, he can't play. He can't play football. That's the thing. That's what we got to do. We got to find those guys. A lot of the times, those guys that look like Tarzan and play good like Jane, they're in the NFL. But guys do fall through. And there's a couple of guys that I'll talk about with regards to that later. Production. Production's obviously a big thing. For example, like quarterback efficiency. I remember a couple of years ago, I was just before I got diagnosed with cancer, I was watching South Dakota play, and Chris Strevler was there. And I was watching the first week, and I went, man, this kid, he looks pretty good. I like the way this kid looks. Second week, saw him play. Man, I'm really liking this guy. I wonder if I should call Danny, talk to him about him. Third week, I emailed Danny. I think it was October, just before I got the diagnosis. I said, Danny, we got to look at this guy. This guy is something. Danny said, okay, Lapo likes passing efficiency of 130. Now, if you go to the NCAA, they have a great area with regards to statistics. So I went, took a look at that time. He was up there. He was like 145, so passed it. When he ran like a 4.5 something at that size, and he had production, I thought, well, he's going to the NFL. We didn't. Bombers got him. Who knows how? it's what I saw. I thought, wow, that's something. I was a little disappointed with regards to his ability to throw the ball in the Canadian Football League, but he certainly did. He was inconsistent. He did make throws. What an athlete! He had a role with that team, and obviously it helped in the Grey Cup. Football intelligence, instincts. What are instincts? Well, to me, it's like reading and reacting, and chances are because you've watched a ton of film, because you've seen what they're doing, and you can react to it. It's like it's an instinct. Bang! You go do it. It's an instinctive type thing. What kind of work habits does the kid have? Is he a leader? Is he a captain? And then you want the best for the room. And I put O'Shea. When I was with the Bombers, I was just so impressed. That was 2016 and 2017. I was so impressed with that room. And I know, Gabe, you played with him. You would know Mike a great deal. And he was building something. They were building something. Kyle Walters. I like to say I'm from Missouri. You got to show me. And so when I went in there, I wanted to see, see what you guys think. They have an excellent, excellent organization. Kyle was excellent dealing with people. He was, to me, he was a really good judge of talent. Ted Gavia, same thing. Danny McManus. It's a good group there. And O'Shea is a big part with regards to the room. There's more. You want a big, fast, strong, quick kid. Yeah, most of them in the NFL, but some have fallen through the cracks. Cameron Wake. There's a what do you call it? Software out there. It's called Draft Scout. It's a little different now. It used to be so easy to access, but it's a little different. But if you went and you probably could type in Draft Scout and then type in Wake's name, you would be amazed at what he did with regards to testing. And you scratch your head and go, how the heck did the NFL miss this guy? Well, they did. And he came up and he did an unbelievable job up here. He tested well, and then he went down. He made millions down there, and which was pretty good. I remember I was scouting Miami when I was on the sideline. And I had my green jacket on. And Wade came up to me and he said, I don't know if I should shake your hand. You got that green stuff on. So I thought that was kind of funny. But another guy was Jerald Freeman. Same type of thing. He was a Div 3 kid from Mary Hardin Baylor. Same type of thing. Joe Womack was the one who timed him, and he looked at the watch and whoa. He came in and he was unreal. There was a talk about striker, talk about a guy that you could just drive right through. I mean, and just make plays. He made a play in the Western semifinal the year that we went to the Grey Cup. We didn't win, but one of the punt returners, he fumbled the football and it went into the end zone, and there were like four Calgary Stampeders around. Oh, I guess you can look at the ball. Freeman just flew in there and cradled that ball, and that saved it. And we went on to the Grey Cup. And then Brendan Iambadejo. Iambadejo was the guy. He was in our league. Then he was out. And Brendan called me when I was at BC. Brendan called me so much. It was like, you got to be kidding me. But great kid. And he said, come on, Craig, bring me in. And I said, Brendan, I'm trying to get you in there. Well, we finally agreed. He came in. He became an all-star. And then went down to the NFL. We never saw him again. He played 1 year with us. And, they had that option year where a guy could go down to the NFL. He signed a 1+1. And so he went down to the NFL, and he played. Every time I went to see him, see the training camps where he was at, he'd come over, give me a big hug. Just a great guy, and I'm still friends with him. But it's our job to find these kids. And I put U of R, Frank McChrystal. What an incredible job that University of Regina has done. They've got a good program. They've got good athletes, but they've cranked out so many kids to the NFL. It's just truly amazing, and I just wanted to put that in there. Okay, so what goes into a scouting report? I'll show you a scouting report later once I get to the Excel files. I'm a little leery about leaving this and then going to the Excel, but maybe I'll do that at the end. And the scouting report, obviously, very obvious things: name, position, height, weight, speed, quicks. And the quicks is a short shuttle 3-cone, test score, that Wonderlic thing it's just a guide. All this stuff is just a guide. Again, this gives us an indication. Does it transfer to the field? Body type, what kind of a body does the kid have? Does it fit to what we are doing? Athletic ability, description. Okay, strength, explosion. And that comes with the bench press, the vertical, and the broad jump. Is he competitive? And then position specifics. That will come into the scouting report. The mental capacity, character. What kind of a character is he? Is he a character, or does he have character? Work habits. Is it? And a lot of these things, we're finding. You look at the bottom, info from coaches, trainer, and equipment guy. We have that ability to go talk with those guys. I like talking with, especially a female trainer. How does he treat you? Does he treat you well? Equipment guy, is he respectful? All that kind of stuff. Just that's important. Again, it's going to fit into the room if you want. His work habits. GPA, is he a smart kid in school? Is he a gym rat? Does he like working in the weight room? Does he love the work on fields? It's field. And then does he love doing reps at practice? Working on his craft and film. Does he like watching that film? A lot of guys, they put the time in. I remember coming in the off season, Darian Durant was sitting there. Hey, Darian, what's going on? I'm watching film. Work ethic. That's what you got to do. Nuts and bolts. Okay. Nuts and bolts of player personnel. The characteristics, I'm not going to go through all that. Kind of went through a lot of that stuff already. But, height, weight, speed, test, is he smart? All that kind of stuff, all that information. You're trying to get all that information. If you guys want any of this, I can certainly send it to you. If it's competitive, does he have stamina? We had a receiver in Hamilton. His name was Kamal Peterson. That kid could run all day. He would work with the ones, and then if we needed help on a scout team, he'd be working on the scout team. He'd run like a son of a gun. The stamina that kid had was incredible. Strength, good in the weight room, that type of thing, and explosion. Like I said, you want anything like that, you can certainly get it. And these are, I'll go over it more, but if you want lists like this, I can certainly send this to you with all the different position-specific type things. The defensive line for linebackers and DBs. Okay. Am I going too long? Like, can I still go, or what's the deal?
No, you're good. You're good, Craig. Keep going.
Okay. Quarterbacks. Obviously, arm strength. You don't want a guy that can't throw, but arm strength is nothing without accuracy. You need accuracy. And how does he get accurate? Well, the feet will get the quarterback in position to throw accurate. Mobility. Now, that mobility is going to help him use his feet to get into position to mechanically throw that strong ball to where it needs to be. But mobility also is escapability. You don't need to be a 4-5 guy. It helps. But I've seen 4-9 quarterbacks use their feet to get outside and get out of trouble. Leadership and toughness. Lead by example. When you're watching tape and stuff like that, you can kind of see, a little bit of a leader, but you need to find out more with regards to the coaches and stuff like that. And hopefully the coaches aren't blowing smoke and trying to help the guy. But that type of stuff, sometimes it's tough to see. You can certainly see toughness. You can see how a kid takes a hit, gets back up, and then gets to the next play. And I just Mike Riley on him. It's amazing some of the hits that he's taken. He just gets up and okay, let's go. Work ethic. Watch his film tirelessly. Film is such a critical thing. You just over and over and over just to see what they're doing. And it's a guy in the gym. Is he throwing after practice? Travis Lule. I was with I can't remember if it was 2008 or 2009. It was Travis's. He wasn't a starter. I think Buck was the starter at that time. the work ethic that guy was incredible. After practice, he would get the receivers, some of the receivers, and he would get rolling. Okay, let's go. Let's do some throwing. You guys run some routes. And he worked himself into be one of the better quarterbacks in the league. Does a guy arrive early? Does he leave late? Does he want to get better and be the best? Is he a pro? And then, of course, making decisions both on and off the field. Put that football where there ain't, in between windows. You know, when a guy comes free with regards to man coverage, does he do that? Receivers. I coach receivers. Whenever I went to, whenever I went to a practice, many times I went to the receivers first, but obviously hands. Just drives me crazy when guys are body catchers. You know, at the young age, get those kids catching the football away from the body. And it's a repetition type thing until they get comfortable. And once they get comfortable, then they'll carry it onto the field. Extend the arms, soften the football, all those different things, but get them doing it when they're young. So as they get into the higher caliber of football, it's just a natural thing. Routes, obviously the different parts of the routes, you know, the release from the line of scrimmage, the stem, what does the guy do with the stem? What does he do at the stick? How is he going in and out of that stick? Can he keep a relative amount of speed? And obviously you got to drop that weight and then go. And then the escape. Does he escape? Does he create separation? Or, you know, and if it's zone, you're not worrying about that. You're trying to find, you know, the window. And does he finish? Does he catch the football? Does he run after the catch? Does he show that ability to do that? Speed, quick moves. And then, of course, blocking. Ryan Feldwell was one of the guys that I was just so amazed at with regards to, you know, a thin, wiry guy from the University of Minnesota, played a little bit with San Diego Chargers way back, and he came up, and that skinny son of a gun, man, he would block like a son of a gun. You look at him and how are you so strong? That strength is taken to the field, and he showed it. When I coached the receivers, I said, you know what? It's sad, but you could go through a game without catching a football. But it's important that you're blocking. You know, that block that you make over here, that might create a touchdown, because a lot of times what happens, that guy over here on the other side of the field, that guy's going for a touchdown, but that guy's going and he's getting that angle. And so, you know, do your job, block. And of course, defensive backs, cover skills. When I first started doing this, Adam Rita would drill it into my head. If I had a defensive back, Adam, I like this guy. Can he cover? Yeah, he can cover, you know, but it was so critical with regards to cover skills, catch-up speed, you know, all the different things. What are his hips like? Are they fluid? Can he flip them? Can he plant and drive at all angles? Transition, when he's backpedaling and the guy's on a go route, can he flip and go? Can he find the ball? I'm not going to tell the guy's name, but we had a guy, unbelievable. He played a number of years in the league too. Unbelievable corner. Damn, you think he could find the ball on that deep ball? It was incredible. But he did a lot of good things. He was just all those different things. He had good cover skills, great hips, all that kind of stuff. But and that's something you just got to work on. I remember when we were with BC, we at the end of practice, it would be like a conditioning drill. So Damon and Nussmeyer and a guy by the name of Nate Sparks, those were a few quarterbacks. We'd just do a go drill, and the defensive back would just mirror. He wouldn't play the ball, but the receiver would. But the defensive back would be in a position, and it was a great conditioning drill. Obviously the quarterbacks were all warmed up. They did that. They ran side by side, and it was just a great drill with regards to developing your skills. Can he play the run? It's important. It's so important. Is he physical? Can he strike? Is he a striker? Can he tackle? Can he wrap? Boy, I'll tell you. I don't know how many times Jets scored. Sorry. I don't know how many times I've seen just unbelievable tackling and horribly. And it just, I know it's obviously tough now because of the, you can't, I mean, there's certain things you can do, but tackling is, it's a tough thing. Does a guy wrap, can he tackle, all that kind of stuff. And the safety, what kind of range does he have? Does he have speed? And again, instincts, what's coming? Does he move? And could that kid play in the box? Could he be a will? Is he physical enough to do that? All that kind of stuff. Linebackers in Canada, we have a Sam, a Mac, or a Mike, whatever your terminology, and a Will. 3 different guys. Sam linebacker. In our league, it's a defensive back that can cover. He has to be able to cover, and he has to be physical. One of the better ones that I've been around is Carl Kidd. Carl was an NFL guy, played in the NFL. Oakland, I think, with Minnesota, he got to go there too. Had great cover skills, and he was physical. That was the kind of guy that you wanted to look for. The middle linebacker, obviously, he's more of a true linebacker. Maybe not quite as thick as the guys down in the NFL. That's for sure, because who was the kid that played in Edmonton, and he played at Eastern Washington. He just retired. He was a strong safety in college football, and he came up and he had a hell of a career. I can't think of his name, but and he was undersized, so he was an inside guy. And then the Will, a lot of times it's like a bigger defensive back. His cover skills might not need to be the way. It doesn't have to be the way to Sam is, but he still has to cover. So different guys, different players, different types, different bodies, different skill sets. Again, hands. Does he take on blocks? Does he use those hands? Can he take on blocks? Can he extend? Can he disengage? Find the football. Instincts, read and react. Fly to the ball. Does a guy have that? Fly to the ball, sideline to sideline. Baron Simpson. He was one of the first guys that one of the first films I ever looked at in 2001. Took a look and I went, wow, this kid's unreal. Right. It's not beer, it's ginger ale. But he was one of the first guys. He ran a 4.85. He tried his damnedest to get that thing down. And he said, Craig, come tie me. And he still ran a 4.85. But he worked, right? He worked. He had I remember being at the Senior Bowl, and Fairholt came out. We had 3 guys. We had Carl Kidd, Frank Catola, and Baron Simpson working out for the New Orleans Saints. And he didn't get to go. I would take him again. I would take him on my team as well. 4.85, throw that out the window. That kid could go sideline to sideline. He could strike it. He could make tackles. He was very good. Mississippi State kid. Excellent player. But that 4.85, that just goes to show with regard all those different things with regards to speed and time, and sure 4.6 guy, yeah, okay. But Baron ran a 4.85, I'll take it. And then cover skills for linebackers. Just obviously I had mentioned that before. Running backs. Running back is interesting in the Canadian Football League. You don't have to be a big tall guy. Although there has been some, our Grey Cup team in 2000, we had 2 big bastards, Sean Millington and Robert Drummond. Again, I'd take those 2 guys. Those guys were unreal, unbelievable running backs, and they were big guys. But at Grey Cup 2004, we had Antonio Warren, 5'9", different back. Great. He set a record at that 160 yards in that Grey Cup. It doesn't have to be tall. It can be shorter. That's the thing about our league. Big things though. Well, first off, vision. Does he have eyes to allow him to hit the holes? Can he explode through those holes? Doesn't have to be that home run guy. He has that nice quickness to get through those holes. And if a guy can get you 6 to 7 yards, that's fantastic. That's a great thing. I know that I neglected to put after a guy gets hit, can he take that hit and can he keep on going? That type of thing. That's an important thing. Does he have quick moves? Can he make miss all those jump cuts, all those drills that you do? Doing jump cuts for the quick feet. Does he have that speed to the corner? And can he take it to the house with that speed? Can he block? One thing, Antonio Warren got into a little bit of trouble. He missed the block. Dickinson got hit. Dickinson got hurt. Antonio wasn't around anymore, and Antonio was a hell of a back. You have to be able to block. You have to answer the bell. You have to move your feet to cover the rusher. Hands on and in. Big thing. Can he catch? That's a huge thing. I saw this kid in Baltimore, and I can't remember his name. Michael. I remember his name was Michael, but saw him at Baltimore, in Baltimore at their stadium. The kid ran for a 75-yard touchdown. I was ecstatic when we signed him and brought him in. And I was thinking of high hopes for that kid. Well, guess what? He couldn't catch. And when he missed a few, and then it was like a waterfall. He got down on himself. He was done. He was cut. Couldn't catch. Great runner. Need to be able to catch in the CFL. It's important. There's a lot of offensive line guys out there. So this is all normal stuff, and the offensive line trenches. It's so important. You can have the best quarterback in the world, but if he's getting hit all the time, he ain't doing his job. Offensive line's got to protect the quarterback. It's no brainer, obviously. But when a tackle, tall, lean, does he have long arms? Not sloppy, not top heavy. It's critical to have some athleticism. That sweet feet can redirect to the counter. We had a kid, Wally had him in Calgary, and then when Wally came over to BC, the kid was named Lester Pope. He came into camp at 379 pounds as a tackle. Didn't last long. Generally, you don't get that guys that heavy. I know that we had Travis Bond. I think he was on that day. He was a heavier guy. Pretty good feet. They moved him into guard. But offensive line. Does he bend his knees? Does he bend at the waist? Which you're going to lose balance. And that's the thing with regards to being sloppy. Is a guy sloppy, but he doesn't have that body control because of that extra weight. Some guys can do it. Some guys can carry that weight, but you're kind of looking for a guy that doesn't have that. You got to have that girth, but you got to be able to control it, and have that balance. Hands again. Is he strong? Can he get those hands? Can he get those hands inside? Does he have that punch? Does he have that 6-inch punch? I like Durazio. He calls it fracture. I had spent that 1 year. Wally said, I want you to help with the running backs. Okay. So I was in the meeting all year with Dan Durazio, and I don't know how many times watching film, I saw fracture. Boy, that was a fracture right there. That strong punch to redirect that defensive line. And guards, centers, they can be thicker, 6'3" or shorter. I mean, I've seen shorter guys, lower body. Dom, how tall are you?
6'2" and a half.
Yeah, see, there you go.
And a half, man.
And a half, yeah, exactly. Like I said, I would take Dom Picard any day of the week. Lower body thickness, the road grader, knee bend, don't want that nose too far forward and off balance and on the ground. Hands, strong punch, all that kind of stuff. Does he anchor? Can he anchor and redirect? Defensive line, edge guys, different guy in our league. We can have lighter guys that are athletic, that can have speed off the edge. Again, hands again. Does he get those hands on? Who gets their hands on first? Who can grab and tear and, have that release and, have some sort of a move, pass rush move afterwards? On and in. Can you get those hands on and in? Grab cloth. I don't know if they, what you teach with that. I haven't, I don't know if you teach that anymore. They have those silly ass jerseys that are so dang tight, but does he have a release? Is he athletic? Does he have quickness, speed? Does he have that speed off the edge? Now in the pass rush, what type of things can he do? Does he just bolt? Does he have that rip? Does he have a swim? Does he have that counter, that spin? Stevie Baggs, one of the best spins I've ever seen, just so explosive. And does he play the runs? Does he hold ground? I saw something. Sean Ollie just sent me a thing on Kirby Smart and a lot of the information there. And he was using a technique with regards to the defensive end and how we played away, how he used it surf. You're going to surf down that line of scrimmage to make, with the play action, the RPOs. You got to make sure where that ball is, and you got to make sure that you're able to make that play. Does he surf? Does he do that? Can he do that? All that kind of thing. Can he be down the line on the runaway? And does he stay home or bite? And his tackle ability, and can he pursue speed, nose and tackle, thickness. I love the thick guy that can hold the ground against the run, and of course you want a guy that can pursue too. But it's so important to have those hands again. Get that hands on and with that strength and control, and again, does the pass rush, does the tackle knows they have pass rush moves? Can they bowl, rip, swim, spin, all that kind of stuff? Does he get a push when he's bowled? Does he get a push? Does he get that guy going? Get that offensive lineman off balance? Does he have the strength to take on the run blocks? And can he dominate at the line of scrimmage? So, scouting football practice. It's incredible how many different practices I've been in 17 years of doing this. But obviously, there's different things. Youth sports, a little more informal. Like I said, I met a lot of you guys attending youth sport practices. You meet the coach, you talk to them. You might get to see some video there. It's imperative to watch the warm up. You taking a look at the body types. Generally speaking, when I go to the youth sports, I'm looking at the draft eligible kids. But then there's also kids that could be fifth year to different thing in youth sports. Could be a fifth year kid that went through the draft. He's free agent maybe. So you're taking a look at that kid, and then possibly guys who are up and coming. That was a real good thing about the East-West game. Those are third-year kids who used to go and we used to be able to be up close and personal with those guys, and you could talk with any of those guys and get a good. Again, testing at that time was who cared, but it was just the good things is the body type and all that kind of stuff. I remember. What the heck was his name? Sam Hurl. He ran like just a horrible time at the East-West. And then, but could play football, and then all of a sudden he came to the evaluation camp and he went, holy cow, he ran a good time. Good. That's the thing. But it still was a great thing for us, player personnel guys, to take a look at some of those guys, up and coming draft eligible kids. So looking at the warm up and body type and all that kind of stuff, and that's right. And NCAA is a little different. I've been to Oklahoma, South Carolina, Western Michigan, Central Michigan, places like that in the NCAA. It's different. It's a different type of thing. They've got a schedule. In the morning you get there, you can talk with the people, and then you watch video. Visit with the pro liaison, have some lunch, watch more tape. And then go to practice. And then that's when you can see body type and stuff like that. And, when you use receivers, you can see hands and stuff like that. And it's a good deal as well. And of course, the NFL camps, when you go to a practice, it's different. And I've got a couple of things that I will show you on Excel with regards to NFL scouting, some of the information that I've put out. Chicago, when I went to Chicago, it's information with regards to Chicago players, and so I'll show you that later. NFL camps, you have to get that credential. You got to put that on. If you don't have that, what are you doing here? That type of thing. Again, go where they tell you. You do what they say. A lot of times, there had been sometimes you wonder why even letting me come here. I'm so far away, but that didn't happen often. A lot of times it was great. And then, of course, like I said, there's 18 teams throughout the years. Now, I did a lot of teams over and over again, but did a lot of video. Not all the teams did it, but that was gold. And this game, I said hours and hours. Like I said, video is so critical to be doing this kind of stuff. And then, and at some point, whether it's before practice, before you even get there, or after practice, sit down and talk with the player personnel people and get some information with regards to their players. When you go in there, you're looking at you know, I mean, you do look at the stars, you know, because ones will get together. So it's kind of neat looking at Peyton Manning with Indianapolis throwing to Marvin Harrison or whatever. But you know, all in all, we're looking at guys who are undrafted free agents, lower round drafts, and you know, guys like that. So, and we'll have a list. And you've got to be prepared when you go in. You got to make sure you have to have that grid with all the players, and then take your notes. And same with at practice, watching film. You know, make sure you're organized so you're in there and you're getting as much as you can from the time that they give you. The games are different. Youth sports, it's tough for youth sports because usually you're sitting in the stands. They don't have the press boxes, and you could be sitting next to a drunk, or you know, I mean, it's just the reality of the way it is. But it's still, I you know, I love going to those youth sport games. NCAA, it's completely different. They feed you. You know, you're in the press box. You know, you get those. You get the tools of the trade. You get the binocs. You know, all that. The flip card. I'll show you a flip card from Minnesota, the Vikings. So, you all know probably about that anyway. But NCAA, it's pretty cool. Get the parking pass, get the credential, get up in the press box, get there early. Make sure you you know, all prepared again. Same type of thing. And then NFL preseason. It's again, it's cool. The last few years, CFL has been able to get all the preseason games on tape. So that makes it a lot better. You know, before we never ever got that. Now all the teams get that. So we could go to games and, you know, take notes and stuff like that. And then we'll get those films and then we can go over the films. And it's just again, another great tool to get information on guys that you have looked at in practice. And then CFL, same thing. Make sure every time I want to get there early. I want to get there early. I want to get, you know, all ready so I can do my job. And then CFL, you know, same type of thing. Get in the press box, you know, and do what you need to do your job. This is a flip card from a game a couple of years ago, 2016 at US Bank Stadium. And I'm sure you've all seen this, but you see the yellow, those are the guys that I'd be looking at. I'd be Paul McRoberts. He's a guy with Saskatchewan now. But you know, all these yellow guys, you see the starters here, not too many yellow guys there, but here there's, you know, a number of yellow that we would be wanting to get information on both sides of the ball. And, you know, and then of course, down here is the rosters. So you got the depth charts, the rosters, numerical. And then on the other side, it's, you know, more information with regards to alphabetical and again, same type of thing. Different places that I've been, just the New York Giants right here, the MetLife Stadium. MetLife, it's really cool because I used to stay just in stone's throw away from there. And on a Friday or say Thursday, I would go to a Giants game, and on a Saturday, I'd go to the Jets game, and pretty much park in the same area and pretty much sit in the same area, but it's all either green or blue. In here, the Fargo Dome, it's a great place. It's kind of crazy because the press box is right next to the fans. And one time I had a fan come right up to me and she is screaming in my ear, and I look at her, give her a dirty look. And it's kind of funny, but very loud in there. 18,000 people, and it's loud. What a great program. Titans, good old Cotton Bowl. I saw that game right there. I saw Johnny Manziel and Mike Evans and Ryan Swope and a lot of good players. Manziel was unreal in that game. Outside of Mile High in Denver, and then on the field there was a scrimmage that for Cleveland, and you know, they allowed us to come on the field and partake in that. So it was pretty cool. this is some of the stuff that I've used. Our Lads, ourlads.com. It's an excellent place. You can get great depth charts. This is just a snap of. There's more to it. With regards to, and I'm watching these all the time, and it shows, like for instance, in Denzel Mims, he was drafted in 22nd round. It shows where guys coming from, and I like I say, I utilize those all the time. And if you click on one, this is like Sam Darnold. It shows 6033. That's he's 6'3" and 3/8, 221 pounds, and then information, and then what the draft Our Lads wrote about him when he was coming out, and so that information is there. One of the publications that I love is the Phil Steele's. Just got an amazing amount of information with regards to the team. It's all Division 1, Division 1A, and I love this. It's got great stats. There's some really good stats in there and I've got this book since 2001. And then same with this one, Our Lads. Our Lads is a draft guide, and it just tons of detailed information with regards to the draft coming up. 2021 should be coming soon, but I've got that since 2001 as well. JP, you had mentioned something about food. Some of the great places that I've been to with regards to food, and I know it'll probably bore you guys, but this up here, Katz's Deli. I don't know if you've been to New York City and been to Katz's Deli. It's one of the best sandwiches that I've ever had. Obviously, the cheesesteaks in Philly, either Geno's or Pat's, Salt Lake Barbecue, and just around Austin, Texas. Unbelievable barbecue. One of my favorites. Wolfgang's. It's not far from the Empire State Building. Great steak. I think we probably spent about $200 there that night, American. Friend of mine, who was the director of college scouting with the Tennessee Titans, took me here, and I've been back a number of times.